they locked me out and I had nothing. I mean, they took everything. We had nothing, with threats on our life, because they didn't think I would walk. They thought, oh, I should just work for them and they'd have total control of me.
Mm.
They didn't think I'd bolt. So then there were threats on my life. They called everybody, my ex-husbands, family, threatening everybody's life. And there were threats on my life.
Welcome back to our CubeSide chat with Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. Now we're going to get into a little bit of story time, because there's a saying out there that, your technology works when someone tries to take it. And that the ultimate flattery is plagiarism. But when that's happening in the moment, it doesn't quite feel so good, does it?
Yeah, we've been through it a few too many times. We're just in the latest version.
Yeah, so the one that we're going to talk about real quick started off quite enamored by you. It sounds like you could feel the energies rippling.
Oh, you want to explain? This is a letter from Robert Religa to a friend of his, talking about how he met me. And understand, I had been teaching all over the world and doing trainings, which people got curriculum hours, people got their advanced degrees and their doctorates and all that off of my teachings. That's part of why I was honored with the Doctor of Natural Medicine, because I taught all over the world. And it was 160 hours credit that people got from my advanced trainings and things like that. So, but I would literally, as a hands-on healer, I'd go in and do talks, and I'd do 40 hours straight of sessions. 40 hours straight of sessions, back to back, waiting lists of people, and get on a plane, do the next place. And people would fly in from everywhere, fly me everywhere, because I was sharing the secrets of instant healing, the codes of instant healing. And so anything and everything would heal, because the power that made the body heals the body. And this is working with the right-left brain synchronization, the higher self alignment, which is right-left brain synchronization. I have 30 years of research in the importance of those brain states and things like that. So, and listening cell by cell to the body as a condensation of consciousness and ultimate meditational, very deep meditational states. And that's what I would teach and teach people how to access. So it was decades already of that work. And it was actually, let's see the date. I pulled it out. This first meeting, I lectured for more than 10 years. I think it was close to 15 years with the Whole Life Expos. And some of my first programs where I took people to like Egypt and stuff, and that's where I met Daniel Brinkley. It was 1987. Yeah, I did harmonic convergence, all these kinds of things. I had my own center. This was 40 years ago now, where I had the heart center. And so anyway, it was a long progression of really working with the healing energies and incorporating all the other energy modalities as well, and then doing the trainings with people. So this first meeting with Robert, I was speaking at a Whole Life Expo in Los Angeles, very similar to the Conscious Life Expo that we just did. But and I had a packed house speaking on the secrets. The Huna means the secrets, the mysteries of life. The Nakani means of the higher self, and I share the higher self alignment. But I was teaching, it was all biophysics. I was teaching the pure science behind the work with the DNA and how that's spiraling into the double helix of the DNA to release anything that's not of core essence. And that activation of the light at the core of the DNA, which is everything that we talk about with the technology, all the same, and how to program computers to emulate my work with that. But anyway, he came to my packed room of a talk that I did on September 13th of 1992. It's been a while. So that's what he's writing a letter talking about that. And this goes back.
Okay, so he starts off with saying, she started speaking, and as she spoke, looking at her eyes, I could see a galaxy of stars through them. Her voice had this clear transmission quality about it, as if the universe was speaking through her. Very unlike the strange channeling phrases you hear from others. It was like hearing Ram Dass in a different time, more connected. Very flattering, very enamored. So it seemed to start off that way. And then what happened? How did this?
And then he talks about further in there how he came and had personal healing sessions with me, and talks about how I worked with the energy and what he experienced and saw with that. So then so he had a number of sessions with me in California, and then I talked about the eclipse and that download of instruction that I got during the eclipse. That was November 13th of 1993. That was that red blood moon eclipse, and I was meditating and asked, okay, God, how do we bring healing to the world? How do we create the quantum leap of consciousness? And I was told to program the computers to emulate my work and generate fields of consciousness, working with the grids within the planet, around the planet, to create that quantum shift of consciousness so we could do a cataclysm of consciousness versus a cataclysm of the planet. And to, use Atlantean programming, Atlantean technology, Lemurian programming to create the balance, to create the healing. That there's a lot of science as far as, I talked before about, because I've worked my whole life with Teslas. And this was that they wanted me to create the counterpoint to all the abuse of Tesla's work, all the scalar weaponry. I was already working with scalar. I'd already been to Egypt how many times. Even in this group, it's 87 was when I brought the first group, I think, for an 11/11, 360 some people in my group. I was one of 4 presenters.
That's the huge advantage traveling in Egypt.
If you've been to Egypt, that was not easy.
No.
And that's where I met, and when I met Daniel Brinkley, actually. Saved by the Light, Daniel Brinkley. Yeah. So that's interesting, but I went to Egypt 6 times. And so it's, bringing that healing to the world, but they wanted me to program the computers to generate those same fields of consciousness. And that interface with the DNA, it was whole instruction of the like 12 strands of DNA scrolling and all the instruction that went into that. And I finally said, okay, I'll do it, God. You want me to do it? I'll do it. You're going to have to tell me how. Now, and I think it was like a week later, that's when I saw that, how to do it and how to do it with a scrolling program. And so,
like scrolling of the 12 strands.
Well, I wanted to create 12 strands of DNA on the screen. I'm going, how do I do that? So it was a lot of work. I spent thousands of hours working, very specifically on how to program the computers. But I eventually saw Religa's scroll program, because he had invited me to come see his scroll program of his synchronicity engine, which went one direction, one color scheme, and one speed, one direction, one color scheme. That was it. It was really just a simple scroll program. There was no advanced algorithms or acausal physics. There was none of that actually in it.
Sounds like it was just a single DNA rather than the entire strand.
And not even that. And it had nothing, not a zilch to do with healing. He wanted to create a weather program and things and create damage,
like controlling weather?
Yeah, that's what was one of his thoughts of what he wanted to do with it.
That's not what you're doing here. Healing.
That was this thought.
Dominion, not domination. Dominion.
Because, one of Religa's, as it turned out, one of his prime memories was the destruction of Atlantis. Remember, and I came in with all my judgment about, the mad Atlantean scientists. Mm-hmm. So he remembered that and wanted to recreate that on the planet.
No, we don't want to recreate that.
And the first thing I told him, no, you're not allowed to do that. No.
That didn't work out so well last time.
No, we're not doing that. Now we're doing the cataclysm of consciousness. And so I eventually flew to Hawaii, to work on, I was very meticulously when instead of, I know exactly what to do, but obviously this is a lot further along than one direction, one color, one speed. Right. And so because I'd already been working with all the polychromatic and, ultimate photonic and, just color healing and all the different modalities of that, I knew exactly what I wanted. And so it was thousands of hours telling him very meticulously what I wanted and trying to get him to to translate that onto the computer. I ended up then spending thousands of hours myself. And he would only let me work on his computer. So he was holding me hostage for my source code. But every color, every iteration of, you see names for the different color combinations. Those were all names that one was to recreate the dolphin and whale energy. So that was very specifically done and created. It's multi-layers of stuff. I would spend thousands of hours working on his computer.
Because he worked for you at the time?
Well, he was being paid all along, and he was paid beyond paid in full on every contract. And we can go into that because, there was only so much that could be done with it because, he wasn't a good programmer, actually. The programming was dysfunctional. When I rewrote it in 2003, it was the second time of totally rewriting it with another programmer. But I rewrote
through code
in 2003. Right. Yeah, but if you can imagine every meticulous piece of it, along with the linguistics, where every single word, every iteration is very intentional to create the effects and the results that we want. You change any of it and you don't get, I created something that's created miracles all over the world. Really didn't never really know how I got it to do what I got it to do. He really never understood that, but he did have my original coding or original programming. But I'd already rewritten it once with his subcontractors where, Religo was paid in full because we couldn't take it any further with what he had. And just like, and he had so many issues. I kept trying to heal him. I mean, I'm a healer. I just kept trying to heal him and helped him with his Cushing's disease. And then I worked with the subcontractor, which that's one of the contracts with him where he was paid in full. I did 2 years of work rewriting everything with his subcontractor. And he was paid in full. They're not the equivalent of $75,000 now. Mm-hmm. It was a lot.
Absolutely.
And but he never paid the subcontractor. So I never got that work. Nightmares. I mean, just all of those nightmares besides working with this Cushing's disease and all these other issues.
To heal him, and you're empathic and caring, and
yeah,
there behind the computer screen, things weren't being integral.
Yeah, so after that, I mean, so it was like, and the next time I saw him, he never paid it. I never got it.
So you had to redo it all yourself?
And so next time I saw him, he had massive tumors, cancer, adrenals. And anyway, so, and he wanted me to heal him. So I said, well, you really screwed us. But okay, we'll give you another chance.
Even after all that?
He keeps screwing. No, the way it worked out. Every time he turned around, he was stealing credit cards. He was, he was paid and paid and paid. And It was just nightmares with him. So, yeah. But yeah, and in 2003, this is one of the letters he wrote to my former husband, my late husband, who said, well, let me manage. He was one that was kind of working with, trying to manage the situations with them. And we wrote, all the codes of what we wanted, the performance codes and things. But Robert wrote, finally, after years of effort, I have the hearing in front of the Social Security Administration judge, because he was going for 100% disability. He asked me to get letters from friends and family to document the problems and limitations that have contributed to me not being able to work at all. She said that specific examples are better. She said difficulties going out, difficulties concentrating, memory problems, etc. I realized I knew for a fact that he had all kinds of issues, and we kept trying to help him heal. And so he was involuntarily put into, for mental issues, at least 3 times that I knew of during this program. But we just kept trying to help him, trying to balance him, trying to heal. I'm a healer. And yes, he had a rough childhood, and, okay, we can work with all that. But, it was always difficult because, I'm invoking angels, so he'd turn around and invoke demons. He'd change words or change things on the computer, and I'd come in and go, what'd he do? Boom, that's what he did. I'd find it instantly because, that's my gift, is in tracking how things affect cell by cell. And he was always doing something to mess with it, and I go, oh, there it is.
Right, you can spot it immediately.
Yeah. So then he goes, would you and Sandra be able to write up such a letter? Okay. So, it's a long saga with him of trying to help him heal. And then it went along, I got it to work. So when in 2001, it was in with Dr. Victor Marcial Vega, had talked me into letting him put our technology in, talk me into it because anyway, Victor is a top 1% of credentials of doctors, but it was all done with my specifications. It was all done with the proper installation, with the way I worked with the computers to generate the fields. We're using computers more like engines to generate fields. And that's very different than just a standard Dell computer or something that people, that Religo that's what he would work with to put the program on. But that didn't produce exactly what I wanted. And the precision of the alignment was also solely 1000% my creation to create all the effects. Because if anything's off, it's more distorted fields. So if it's not precisely properly aligned to our specifications and how we work with that, it does not create the nullification of the detrimental fields, the EMF, the ELF, especially the radiation. Because we're doing implosion, and it creates that null zone effect off the torsion field. There's that null zone effect that actually has been researched and studied all over the world. It goes out about 2.2 miles. And that's that nullification of the detrimental and destructive fields. So we'll go into that a lot more when we go down the scientist hole. But then what happened later was one of the people who was sent in to take everything, was personally trained by Kissinger. And they had me sign things I shouldn't have with trusts and things because it was buried, and I was traveling constantly, and I'd land in and be on a flight the next morning, and so buried in this was something making this guy, I've been paying him $5,000 a month for almost send in to infiltrate to get me to trust him, and send in to infiltrate, get me to trust him. It's so important that you trust me.
There's a red flag right there.
Yeah.
If someone has to tell you to trust them,
Yeah.
that's usually the case.
And paid him that, which was a lot of money too. This was in 2001 to 2.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. To be like an international attorney to protect my interests, paying him to protect my interests. And so, yeah, they took everything. They took everything. I mean, locked me out of my own offices, all that. And then Religo was going to work with them because they had now the real inventor. Does that sound? Yes, that's what I dealt with them. And him then all of a sudden him claiming that he did it all. But there had been, trademark copyrights submitted, and these were the trademark copyrights through the federal government, the federal issued ones for commerce. It was under Body of Light from all my teachings, pre-recorded audio, video, and computer software, all in the field of spiritual healing, because it was the codes for instant healing. And interfacing with everything was designed to interface with the DNA. And I was told specifically that we had to create the technology to bring the DNA back to its original divine design, back to its original God code, the original divine design, which part of that is the activation of the missing strands. And so that has been the research, repair of the DNA and lengthening of telomeres and all that. So this was filed in 97, also printed matter, naming the books and manuals, because I had my manuals for all my workshops and 5-day and 10-day weekend ones. And also the body map of how thoughts have been stored and what allows instantaneous release, but it allows instant healing. How thoughts have been stored in the body, because the body's condensation of consciousness, and the issues have been in the tissues. So, and educational services, conducting classes, workshops in the field of distributing course materials. But anyway, so that's Body of Light. It was filed in June of 97 and finally granted through the government in March of 1999, including the software, which was called HUNA, the Secrets of Instant Healing, HUNA, by Sandra Michael, and it was copyrighted Body of Light and Robert Religa on the bottom of that. But it was, but if you see, that was HUNA was my program, Body of Light.
Yours.
It was me, but because he was just the programmer, and he really didn't have a clue how I got it to do what it did. But he'd go along with me, but wanted to hold me hostage on that source code for, but each of the programs, like the dolphin whale, but we had also the ones for, as rainforest. I was developing this from the rainforest of Ka'au on the Big Island, Hawaii, which I flew him in to work on the program. And that's what he also talks about in that letter, maybe, talks about how that first, when we put it all in, as I said, it's like the computer's ready to breathe, and it just imploded. The computer imploded.
Oh my goodness.
And it was an expensive habit I had, imploding computers. Like I said, this was a long process of trying to get it to work and do what I wanted it to do to emulate my work. And it all very, very meticulously particular, every single detail, because everything has effect. Every word, every thought, every color, every code, every bit. Yeah. All of it has effect. And it's like the underlying intentionality. There's many, many layers and levels to what we created. And you see, one of the programs called Rainforest. And it was the energy more of the rainforest. Then we cycle through those different, I wanted it to cycle through the different ones. So it gives like a smorgasbord for the body, these different energies, or the creation energy and the power. We talked about Pele, the supreme life light. We want to activate that supreme light creation power, because the power that made the body heals the body. So I try to explain my process of creation. It's all my intellectual property.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And every name of all of that is all. He wanted to just relegate it to, I just did linguistics.
How about that? Linguistic words.
Yeah, so that's some of it.
So what I'm seeing here is new since 2003, or this what we're since then the code that you.
Yeah, and what happened with all that? Yeah, so 2002 is when we dealt with the Kissinger takeover, and they locked me out of my offices. As somebody personally trained by Kissinger to get control of me. And they wanted control of me and my work. They wanted control of anything I ever did, never would do. That's what they were trying to go for. Fortunately, I had an attorney, a constitutional attorney, that he had gone blind, and in a session with me, he'd gotten his vision back. So he helped work with the attorneys to get me out of that legal quagmire that I was in from all of that. But really, I had wanted to work with them, and basically, one of the things he's trying to say, I violated his synchronicity engine license with my creation, right?
That you had before,
right?
I never met you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was going to work with them, and the one specific thing was that he heard I'd been making medical claims. No, this is because we had the 132 patient study with Dr. Victor Marcial Vega.
Yes, well, that's a clinical study.
So he never wanted it to do healing. So number one reason for, his oppositions to, he wanted to work with them now and say he's the real inventor. And number one thing he didn't want me to do is to claim any medical or healing benefits at all. So he's the real inventor of a healing technology, right? But
mention it.
He also claimed that I was charging products. Well, yes, we did a lot of research with charging product, and I had been charging products for people since, the 70s, essentially, and done a lot of research with that. And I was charging product. So he didn't want any of that done up. It wasn't designed to do that, according to him. And no alignment procedure. And remember, all my work's based on the higher self alignment, or the alignment process. And so the alignment process that I created said no alignment procedure will be created without my approval. No claims that scalar waves, fields, etc. will be made in reference to any use of his synchronicity engine. And he wanted approvals of everything. And everything will credit him. because in the previous agreement, he agreed to not have his name on anything. That was some of the previous agreements, because we didn't want people to find him in an institution or something. It will not be any charging a price. Where was it? It said there was something else. Miss Michaels has created a chamber alignment procedure. This is entirely her creation. Right.
At least he's stating facts now.
Yeah. So that was true. Yeah. So that was part of it. Didn't want the charging of products, didn't want it doing any healing, didn't want didn't want anybody to say it had any health benefits. And, you know, and then saying, and there's no scalar being created. That was another thing. And, he just worked on one computer. That's it. That was it. Yeah.
Well, since then, you've definitely proven, and the technology has proven with thousands upon thousands of testimonials all over the world, that it is in fact doing what you intended and why you built it in the first place.
Or the original promise was that it'd be like I was sharing sessions 24/7 all over the world. And I was already recognized as like, the top healer on the planet. Even, our friend Wayne Dyer got on stage and said, and announced me that way, because he had his own miracles, brought him back to life a few ways and times. And so that's why you see some nice testimonial from him. So then since they locked me out and I had nothing, they took everything. We had nothing. It's crazy. With threats on our life because they didn't think I would walk. They thought, I should just work for them and they'd have total control of me. They didn't think I'd bolt. So then there were threats on my life. They called everybody, ex-husbands, family, threatening everybody's life. And there were threats on my life. So we were in hiding for a while. And then one of my clients had a Thunderbird house in Thunderbird Estates. Thunderbird, think about that. And the next street over was President Ford. And so at very, very high security.
Yes.
And we relaunched, it's like the Phoenix hitting the ashes with nothing, and relaunched from the Thunderbird house in Thunderbird Estate.
That's prolific.
In Palm Springs. And I had built everything on my credit and stuff. And these guys got, including Relica renting up credit cards for tens of thousands. He was more than quadruple paid on everything. And and the Kissinger team guy that was sent in, never mind, I was paying him $5,000 a month, but he got more than $250,000. And we had zip, nada, zilch, and no credit either because all the credit cards were
maxed out. Wow. Ultimate wipeout. And where you go from ground zero is straight up.
That's the running of the Phoenix. Oh, darn, we hit those ashes again. Because when I built my first scalar healing light chamber, I came in one day, they were supposed to be doing a whole big spread on me in the Pittsburgh Press. This is Monroeville, Pennsylvania. They're going to do full color spread on me in my salon of health with the technology there. And I came in that day and I was locked out.
Oh, so it's happened before.
This was a different mafia. It was the Italian mafia.
Oh, goodness.
That's another wild story. So that's how this technology was stolen then. From, my first scalar healing light chamber from 78. Yeah. Monzo. I didn't know what Mafia was. We're just a healer. I'm coming from the lineage of Martin Luther. I don't know. But anyway, so we went through that whole thing. And then, so we needed to rewrite. I didn't have my own technology for like almost 6 months. So we started and rewrote the technology with my brother. And he's the one, when we decompiled and looked at it all, and it was spaghetti code. That's why we'd rewritten it all for 2 years with another programmer. That it was spaghetti code. It was bad programming. He was a bad programmer.
And use it.
Yeah, it was dysfunctional. That's why I'd rewritten it the first time. And so rewriting it again with him, from that spaghetti code. Of course, my brother, you have the pictures of when he was little, but he's 6 years younger than me, but he graduated from Ohio State and went on I think his first job, he went on to be chief missile programmer for Lockheed. So he was kind of doing that weapons thing.
Similar to your parents.
Yeah, chief missile programmer for Lockheed. And then he came to one of my programs and had an experience and said he could no longer do weapons of mass destruction. So he went to more NSA, but he was legendary. He started a company, he was legendary in that field. Max is his name, and started Maxim Systems, all top secret NSA projects and things. And he could program anything. So he was upset with me because he had met Robert Religa. And why didn't you just have me do it in the first place?
Could have saved all this time, trouble, and money.
Because this is spaghetti code. So we rewrote it a totally different format, different files, different drivers, but kept all my intellectual property of all my design and kept the same commands. But it's a whole different driver, and of course it worked 10 times better than the old bad programming. When it was rewritten, it worked 10 times better.
And that's the one we have today.
Yes.
So
I mean, and even after the initial rewrite, I rewrote, like, I tweaked, did like 6 rewrites.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Continuously upgrading.
Yeah. And since then, we've continuously upgraded the hardware.
Yes, this is beautiful. The white cube is my favorite.
Yeah, and Michael's been masterful at that, and because initially it was all me. But Michael was 16 when we went through that incident. And so he's now 41, but he's been helping run the company since he was 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's when he saw the need to step up, and he probably matured real quick.
Yeah.
Like that role.
And it was like, when I was in hiding, I was being protected. He had all the booby traps everywhere.
Aw, sweet.
to
protect his money.
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting. And then the filing for the patent trademarks, but with the patent office, the title of the invention was Method and Apparatus for Creating a Plurality of Energy Fields. And so that was originally filed in 2004, because that was all my design, of course. But I also had somebody else trying it, said if I didn't have a patent, they were going to patent it and try to steal the technology that way by patenting it. And then we had also the guy the threats on my life, that the guy that is an agent, and some people may have heard of him, Boyden Nobel. He's actually he did interviews with Carrie Cassidy and stuff. Boyden Nobel came in, and he had made arrangements to sell it to either GE or DARPA.
That's also not in the plan.
And I said no.
Good.
So then there were threats to my life. Wrecked me. I have the recording to connect the FBI threats and attacks and the like with that. And that's when that's the Inway started having the Bobby Buds. Because he told everybody I owed him as a large commission. I forget what it was. A large commission that I now owed him because I refused to sell.
Because you said no.
Yeah. But God had told me no, I wasn't allowed to. This was never, ever about money. This was always about how do we heal the world. So we kept that patent pending for method and apparatus for creating plurality energy fields. We kept that patent pending for years. This particular one I'm looking at was a refiling in 2009. But we kept that because there's more protection in patent pending
than actual patent. Yes. If you keep it pending, then it basically stays as a trade secret.
Right. And so we kept it then as proprietary.
Good. Boy, so many fire-lined hoops you've had to jump through to bring this to humanity so that we can all iterate and all learn.
An easy job.
Obviously not. Thank you.
I just want to get my job done.
Right.
This is, it's what I came in for. I just want to bring into the world back here for fall.
Well, thank you for taking on these challenges for all of us, really, is what I want to thank you for.
We have no other agenda. Just heal the world. Yeah, and that was my whine. I wanted to play victim for a minute. And it'd be, why are they trying? Why are they attacking me? Why in the world would they be attacking? All I want to do is heal the world. Duh. Hello. When they're out on the front line, you better take tickets. It comes with the every time you're doing something real major for the planet, you're going to have like the chihuahuas biting at and happen at your heels to distract, to dispel. And then, I came in with a bit of fear prosecution issue from all that once burnt, twice shy stuff.
That last lifetime.
From the Inquisition period. Those of pure persecution, that kind of thing. So, little remnants of that, and my judgments about the mad Atlantean scientists. So what have I drawn? Because I dealt with the man. The insanity, genius insanity, and that fine scale away wavy line.
Yeah, that balances out in the middle somewhere.
Line up down about alignment. Well, being aligned, 5 light, with the light that is the light, and highest powers of love. We're on air, as the risen heavy, through us, now. So it is.